Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and today we're talking about the alternative freeride favorites for 2025. I've ridden over 800 boards and probably over 1,000 if you count the different versions of the same models I've tried over the years. I'm an average rider like most of you, but I extensively test and compare snowboards. I often go up with several boards, same boots, same bindings, same stance angles, same stance width, same runs, which pisses off my friends to no end. But it gives me a very unique perspective, so you're going to want to check out this list. And just so you know, this is no pay-to-play favorites list. All these boards earned their spot on this list solely by how they ride. So if you want to support honest, objective content, buy through Blauer Board Shop. They've been selling specifically to snowboarders for a long-ass time. They sell a lot of snowboard gear that we enjoy here at The Good Ride. They're very good at price matching against the bigger stores. They give the same fast shipping and customer service that they do as well. So give them your hard-earned money. So what's alternative freeride to The Good Ride? Well, this is a board that rides a little bit shorter, has a little more taper, is a little more directional, a little more set back than a traditional freeride board, but it's still not over in that super set back on the tail snow surf kind of ride. And it's not a super short wide, which used to be on this list, but I put it in its own category because it's just so different. And before we get into this list, I just want to say we're living in a great time to be a snowboarder. There are so many good rides out there. So if your board didn't make the list, it might be better for you than the boards on this list. First up on the list is the Gentemstick Mantaray. This is the godfather. Almost all the boards on this list take some inspiration from the Mantaray. I am incredibly lucky and pleased to own this expensive board. You can ride this at any ability level, from a wealthy beginner to an expert. You have 22.3 millimeters of taper, and it's a pretty directional shape. There's a 35.5 millimeter setback on side cut at 20.75 inches. And then you can get 4.625 inches back from center of board at 20.75 inches as well. This has the narrowest stance width on this list. There's a mellow directional camber with a little more early rise in the nose than the tail, but it's pretty forgiving and pretty stable. There is a medium flex that's really easy to ollie, really easy to butter, and it's a great all conditions ride, except for those that like to charge through chunder. There's lots of different versions of this, but they all have a similar ride. They're such a fun turning experience that's a lot more than you would think for this mellow camber. It's great for those that like to across the groomer carve, make really tight radius turns, but also don't want a board that feels hooky when you want to go straight. You can weight your turns any way you please. It has very good grip, an incredibly fast base, and it floats really well in powder too. It can slash just as well as it can carve. If you're a slow to medium speed turner and you want something that really shines in that world, this is it. Next up is the Jones Hovercraft, a high-speed, hard-charging carver on groomers, but a very floaty, turny, easy-riding board in powder. This is for everybody from committed intermediates all the way up to experts. This has 17 millimeters of taper with a very directional shape. The stance is centered on side cut, but if you want to set it back in powder, you can get 6.75 inches back from center of board at a 22-inch stance width for both reference and set all the way back. There's a mellow but long camber going from almost the tail to well past the front inserts. Then it transitions into rocker to spoon nose. So the flex is on the medium side of medium stiff. It's pretty easy to butter, pretty easy to generate your own air, and it's a great all conditions ride. If you're somebody who likes to make hard, high speed, down the line carves, but you occasionally like to across the groomer carve, you like a little bit more of a back foot weighted turn, and then if you want something that's incredibly floaty and you want an easier, more slashy turning experience in powder, especially with the spoon nose, this could do the trick for you. Next up is the Amplid Surfari. This is a powerful, chatter absorbing, poppy, hard carving, front foot friendly turner kind of ride. And this can work for committed intermediates, but it's a little better for advanced expert riders. Unfortunately, it only comes in 2 sizes. This has 16 millimeters of taper and a very directional shape, even though it doesn't feel that directional. There's only a 10 millimeter setback on side cut at about a 22-inch stance width, and then 4.75 inches back from center of board at a 22-inch stance width if you set it all the way back for powder. There's a mellow but long directional camber with only a little early rise before the tail and a little more before the nose. The nose has some lifted sides, so it has a bit of a spoon nose feel in powder, and the tail doesn't have any lift. This is medium stiff flex-wise. It's got a lot of pop for a mellow camber, and it's an exceptional all-day ride in all conditions. It's the best on the list when it comes to that. This is great for those who really drive hard off your front foot, make high-speed down-the-line carves, but occasionally like to mix it up and make an across-the-groomer carve. But if you're a center-weighted or back-foot-weighted turner, this isn't bad either. It's not the best floater on this list, but it's great for those that want a board that's just as fun in the morning as it is at the end of the day when it's just tracked up and messy. Next on the list is the Cardiff Powgoda. This is a super floaty, setback, fun, turny, slashy, more back foot oriented ride for people with full-size discs. This will work with everybody from committed beginners with a lot of money all the way up to experts. It's not going to get boring at any ability level. It's got 21 millimeters of taper and a very directional shape. It's only 5 millimeters set back on side cut at a 22-inch stance width, and then it's 6 inches back from center of board at a 22-inch stance width if you use the setback inserts and you have a full-size disc. Don't get this if you have mini discs. There's a directional camber going from almost the tail to past the back insert. Then it starts to transition into early rise over the front insert, and it gives you a lot of rocker into that bigger nose. So it's a pretty forgiving but still stable camber-like ride. It doesn't feel loose between the feet. There's a medium flex that lives more on the poppy side of the spectrum, but it's not super poppy. It's very easy to butter and very easy to access this pop on an ollie, and it's a good all conditions ride in everything except for choppy, thick, uneven snow. It's got really good grip in hard snow, has an exceptionally fast base. It's really exceptional in powder when it's set back. It has almost dedicated powder board float, and it's really fun for back foot weighted carvers on groomers. It really likes tighter radius turns, and it's the quickest turning, slashiest board on this list. Next up is the Jones Mind Expander, and this is a turny, quasi big mountain directional turner. It works for everybody from a committed intermediate all the way up to an expert. There's 20 millimeters of taper, and it has a very directional shape. It's centered on side cut at a really wide, free the taint 23.6 inch stance width, but to compensate for that, they put 2 inserts on the inside so it can accommodate a narrower stance width. You can get 4.75 inches back from center of board though at a 22.75 inch stance width. This has a medium-sized directional camber that goes almost from the tail to a little before the spoon nose, but yet it doesn't feel too technical or too catchy. There's a medium stiff flex with good pop that's easy to ollie and okay to butter. It's a great all conditions ride in everything except for hard micro bumpy snow, but it's still okay there. This has good grip, a pretty fast base, and while it does prefer a little bit more of a back foot weighted turn, you can weight your turns any way you please with this. The Mind Expander is for those who like a more turny, across the groomer to circle carve ride, but also want to be able to make a down the line turn here and there too. It's no slouch when it comes to float, and it has a very fluid, easy turning experience thanks to the spoon nose and the really tapered shape, but it's not a setback as some of the boards, which makes it a little better for those that want to dabble with some big mountain riding but see some low angle powder as well. Next up is the Rome Stale Fish, which is named after the rider, not the trick. If you want to call it the stale fish, you can. This is the best turny, slashy, back foot weighted, centered riding, big mountain alternative freeride board on the list. This works for everybody from committed intermediates on up to experts. This is a pretty tapered and directional shape, but they haven't disclosed the nose or tail width, so I don't know the taper. It's 15 millimeters back on side cut at a 22-ish stance width, and then 3.75 inches set back on board at a 21.75 inch stance width, which is not that far back, but still accommodates most stance widths. There's a directional camber with camber pretty much from the tail going up to what they call a diamond nose with an angled lifted side. So as you get closer to the nose, there's more lift. There's a medium bordering on medium stiff flex with really lively pop. It's very easy to ollie and spring off that tail, and it's not that hard to butter as long as you don't engage the diamond part of the nose. It's a very good all-condition ride as well, and while it's not really a fish shape, it has a very slashy, turny feel to it that really works for more back foot weighted carvers, and the spring out of the turn is very fun. And it's great for getting air, maybe the best on this list, because you're so centered on board and you have so much landing gear in the tail. Not the fastest base on the list, not the best grip, but it's nothing anybody's gonna get bummed about if they have it. If you want an all-rounder for groomers and powder, but you love that more directional tapered ride and you like a centered feel for getting air, this is your buddy. Next up is the hard snow favorite, the Yes Pick Your Line Uninc. This was in the freeride favorites, but I moved it over to alternative freeride because it's just so much more tapered and directional than most freeride boards out there. This is another big mountain slashy turny board with a more centered stance, but this does really well in hard to icy snow as well as big mountain riding. This will work for intermediates all the way up to experts, even a committed beginner with a lot of money. It's got 15 millimeters of taper and a pretty directional shape, and this tapered underbite side cut makes this feel more tapered than you would think for 15 millimeters. It's centered on side cut at a pretty wide 22.5 inch stance width, and then 3.375 inches back from center of board at a 22.5 inch stance width. Again, there's a pretty decent amount of directional camber with a little bit of early rise before the tail and a good bit more before the big nose that feels very stable and consistent in all conditions. It's got a medium stiff flex, but it's easy to butter, easy to ollie, and it's a very good all conditions, all day ride. I've tried a 55, 57, and a 59. I own the 57, and it's just such a fun ride for me, even though I ride primarily low angle powder. But if I was living back in the Sierras and riding much more steep terrain like I used to, this would be one of my all-time favorite rides, just because the nose has an entry point into the side cut that allows you to go straight if you want to, but then when you're in the mood to make a really quick turn, you can do it as well. This does prefer more back foot weighted turns. There's very good float. It has exceptional grip for hard snow, and it's one of the boards I often recommend for people who live in a hard to icy area but want a great big mountain powder board for when they go on trips. Now, last up on the list, but far from the least, is the low-cost favorite, the Korua Transition Finder. But I wouldn't really call this a low-cost favorite. This punches so much higher above its price point. This is the hardest carver on the list, and it's up there with some of the best boards on this list for getting air. It also has very good float and powder. It's good for committed intermediates on up to experts. This has 18 millimeters of taper and a pretty tapered directional shape, but not really for Korua. Most of their boards are a lot more tapered and a lot more directional. This is 25 millimeters back on side cut at about a 22 inch stance width. Hard to tell for sure what the reference is. And then it's 4.875 inches back from center of board at a 22 inch stance width for POW days. There's a healthy boa camber here, going from almost the tail to a little before the nose, but it's not too much to be ultra technical, ultra catchy. It's got a medium stiff flex, And it takes some work to get this to pop, but when it pops, it really pops. It's some work to butter as well, and it's a great all conditions ride in everything but hard uneven snow, but it's still not really a slouch there either. The red base has very good glide. It's a little difficult to repair though. And this board has little compromises for this price point. This would be a favorite even if it was 650 bucks. It just wouldn't be a low cost favorite. So that rounds out the list. It's greatly appreciated if you like and subscribe. Buy through our links, especially to Blauer Board Shop, a snowboard gear only website. Check out our Patreon where I offer unique content and early access to boards while I'm reviewing them. And if you want advice and you want to do this right, contact me through the paid advice form on thegoodride.com. You'll get massively better advice than you will on YouTube, or if you contact me through another channel. If you want to ask me a question on YouTube, I at least need your boot size, your weight, your height, the make, model, size, year, board you ride now, and how it rides for you. The same goes if you want to share your opinion. Otherwise, your take makes no sense and helps nobody. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next favorites.